So now we are going to get started with our ASP.NET Core 2.2 Web APIs from scratch, and I'll be your author. First of all, I have a question. What is SOA? See, our programming strategy, or you can say problem solving approach, we started with unstructured programming, then procedural oriented programming, then we moved for component based or you can say object oriented programming. We had the concept of classes and all those things. Then we went for component based programming. So whatever we have done, the layered architectures, it was component based programming, you can say. We were creating DLLs. Each DLL is a component. We were adding that component. We are reusing that component. Now after that, what they thought, instead of going with component based programming, let us move with something new which should be more reusable. So we came up with service oriented architecture or service oriented programming. So service oriented architecture. Now what is service oriented architecture? Let us try to understand. Service oriented architecture. It is a reusable component on the network. It is collection of services on a network that communicate with one another. For example, verifying a credit card transaction or processing a purchase order. Loosely coupled, meaning that an application does not have to know the technical details of another application in order to talk to it. Services are well-defined, platform-independent interfaces and are reusable. Is it clear? Have you understood service-oriented architecture? Okay, don't worry. This theory part you will understand after this slide. We will just understand why we need SOA. Service oriented architecture. Then we will go for what is SOA. So that previous slide you will understand after going through this slide. So this is what we have already done. We have our database, we have our web server, and we have our three layers: user interface, business object layer, data access layer. So we call it as components: business component, data component. So it was in the form of DLL, right? We were adding everything. So all the clients, they are interacting with our UI. It is interacting with your business logic layer, then data access layer, then interacting with database. So this was three layered architecture, you can say. Now say I have my web application. Now I want a mobile application for the same. I want a mobile application for the same. So what do I need to do? Definitely I need to design my mobile UI. User interface I need to design. Right? I need to design my mobile UI. New user interface should be designed. But my business logic and data access layer I have already written over there. I can take a copy of that. These two DLLs I have copied here, or I have used here, or I have added here. Now you might have observed the best example for this is your Gmail. If I take Gmail, you can log in to your Gmail using your web application browser. You can also access your Gmail using mobile apps. Now, if you send an email using your browser, you will find that in send item in mobile as well, right? It means you have two different UIs, that's it. But your business logic layer, data access layer are the same and they are working on the same database. Any changes done with your web will reflect in your mobile. Any changes done with your mobile will reflect in your web. Not only this, but in any device. If you take your bank accounts, you can have your web bank account, you can access through web, you can access through mobile app, you can access through ATM. So three different interfaces. But your balance gets updated if you access it from anywhere. That means what? Your business logic and data access, they are being reused, right? But if I make any kind of change in my business logic or any kind of change in my data access layer, then what should I do? So I need to update the DLL in all these applications, and I need to have the copy of this DLL in all these applications. Is this clear? If anybody wants to use this logic, then I need to give this DLL the complete access, or I should give a copy of this DLL to them. Are you getting my point?
Yes.
So one drawback is I need to, if I make any kind of changes in my DLLs, then I need to update those DLLs in all the UIs. Right. Now what I will do, instead of having copy of this DLL in each and every UI, what I will do, I'll host these DLLs in a separate layer or a separate server. I will remove these DLLs and I'll have a new server and I'll host those DLLs over here. This is again, we call it as a service. Now this is our service, which is hosted on separate server, service host. Same, like we are hosting web application, in the same way we are hosting service. Web application we are hosting on web server, service we are hosting on web service host. So that is also a web server, this is also a web server, that is also IIS, this is also IIS, just we are using different names. Now my service I have hosted on a server that is called as service host. Is it clear? Do you find any UI in this? Now my service is available to the world. It is available global. Anybody they want to use it, they can use it. So this UI is now interacting with my service, So my UI is on one server and business logic layer is on another server. Are you getting my point? Two tiers. Now the concept of tiers come into the picture. Earlier it was layers because all the components were on the same server. Now my UI is on one server, business logic layer is on another server. Two tier. If I want, I can add my data access layer on another server. Three tier. Are you getting the point? So my client is getting the data from two servers or getting the data traveling from two servers. So my client interacts with web server. Now web server interacts with service host. Then service host is going to interact with your data access layer. Now you see both the UIs, they are using the same copy of DLL. So my mobile app is also interacting the same service. Web app is also interacting the same service. Now if I make any changes in business object layer, then how many updates do I need to do? Only one. And one more beautiful thing about this services is that Java or PHP application can also access my services. Are you getting my point? Your UI need not to be a .NET, your UI need not to be Angular, your UI need not to be a mobile app, or you can say some specific technology. No, it becomes technology independent. So you have developed your service in .NET, a Java application can use it. Or a service is developed in Java, a .NET application can use it. This architecture is called as service-oriented architecture because I have created a service and I have hosted it on service host. Is this clear? Anybody, any doubt? Now we will go to our old slide. You should understand the things, these points. So this is our service, right? This is our service. Now we are talking about this component. We are talking about this component. This is the service that we have created. We are not talking about UIs. We are talking about this service. So what is service? It is a reusable component on the network. Is this point clear now? It is collection of services on a network that communicate with one another. So the entire architecture also. One service can interact with another service, right? and that service is interacting with this service. So you can have multiple services interacting with one another. For example, verifying a credit card transaction or processing a purchase order. Now, what do you think? There are a lot of e-commerce applications, and almost all the e-commerce applications, they ask for credit card information. Now, they have not written that logic. Now, what they are doing, they are using a service. They are using a service. So there is one service available, payment gateway services, you might have heard about. That is PayPal, PayUmoney, a lot of services these days. So they are using that service. So some part of our application, if you want, you can outsource that. The best example could be your functions. You have some kind of, you have wedding function. So what you do, you hire catering services. What you do, you pay them some amount, they deliver the food. So a part of your function was catering. So what you did, you just outsource that. So you're using some services. So our web application uses web services. Your web application uses web services. Now, how to achieve SOA? How to achieve this service-oriented architecture? There are various approaches of achieving this service-oriented architecture. I'm not going to, talk about all, old approaches, but famous approaches I'm going to talk about. If you want, you can take my WCF course. I have spoken about all old approaches. So you can take that course, you can go through all those videos, you'll understand old approaches also, but I'm not going to discuss all those things. Message queuing, pipes, and we have a lot of approaches. But the famous approaches, .NET remoting. It was very famous in our initial days of .NET remoting. But the drawback of .NET remoting was your client should be .NET, server should be .NET. Client and server should be .NET in .NET remoting. So what we did, we came up with the concept of web services. In web services, this was not the restriction. Your server and client need not to be .NET. Your server can be .NET and client can be Java. Your server can be Java and client can be .NET, anything. But and the important was the XML files. So we were interacting through XML in our web services. We were passing the data as XML and we were retrieving the data as XML. And we were using SOAP, Simple Object Access Protocol we were using. So all those things in your web services. But again, it became difficult, what to choose, whether to choose .NET remoting or to choose web services. And I need to learn these two technologies separately. So what Microsoft did, they came up with another concept, that is WCF, Windows Communication Foundation. It has unified everything into WCF. If you learn WCF, you can implement remoting, you can implement web services, anything you can implement. And WCF also supported one more thing. WCF also supported one more thing, that is RESTful services. See, we learned service-oriented architecture. To achieve services, we have .NET remoting services, web services, WCF. And one more thing, that is RESTful services. It slowly started attracting the market, I think in the year 2008 or 2010. RESTful services. Now what are RESTful services? RESTful services are nothing but your web APIs. Now what do you mean by web API? What do you mean by RESTful services? We will see. And using WCF, we can also implement RESTful services. But it was very complex approach. So what slowly Microsoft has done, they full-fledged came with ASP.NET Web APIs. Now, my first question, why do I need Web APIs? Why do I need Web APIs? In our initial days, our client was only computer system. But, so web client you can say, so computer system. But now, what you have seen, the web clients, mobiles, smartwatch, right, TV, pads, all those things. Now, what do you think the next? But this is not the current web. The current web is this. Internet of Things is this is what? You will find internet in all these things. Are you getting my point? All these devices will have internet. So in future you will find almost each and every object around you with internet. But now you can see that every people, they have one internet of thing. What is that? Mobile. And in future you will find lot of internet of things with each and every people. At least 2 to 3 devices they'll have. Smartwatch, now you can see many people they are having. Even in medical science, they are working a lot to come up with lot of devices. So anyway, you will see all these things in future. So that's why we need some simple way of working with services, because I need to access that in all these devices. So I need some simple way. So that's why we need REST. Now what is REST? Service for any device with front end. I need a service for any device with UI. Any device with UI, I need a service for that. So my device should use that service. So it should be easy to implement. First of all, it should be easy to implement. It should be simple, and it should be lightweight. Why? Because these are all small devices, right? You cannot have your complete XML file loaded into the client for making proxy servers. So in our WCF, we used to have proxy servers, proxy classes. So I cannot go with all those things because my devices are very small. So I want lightweight. I don't know how many of you have worked on web services. So we add XML files, right, on the client. It will generate proxy classes, which was very heavy. So I cannot do that with these devices. So I want something lightweight. And also I need all the features of HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. All the features means HTTP has get method, so it should get the data. It has post method, it should insert the data. It has put method, it should update the data. It has delete method, it should delete the record. These are the things we want. So what we have seen in our MVC for update and delete, we were using post methods. So it was not full-fledged following your HTTP standards. But now it should follow full-fledged HTTP standards. So REST, what do you mean by REST? REST stands for Representational State Transfer Services, which fulfill all the above needs. So web APIs are RESTful services. So web API are RESTful services means what? Web APIs are for any device with front end. Web APIs are easy to implement. Web APIs are simple. Web APIs are lightweight, and it supports all the features of HTTP. I have picked some important points. If you want to dig into RESTful, you can just go for Wikipedia and Google RESTful, you will get. But RESTful means this. So web APIs are RESTful services. Have you understood? Web APIs are web services. But what type of web services? RESTful web services. Now what is REST? This is the definition of REST in our Wikipedia. Architectural style and the design of network-based software architectures was initially proposed by Roy Thomas in his 2000 PhD. So it was initial concept came into picture in 2000. Fine. Now what is RESTful web API? Are you getting my point? Now what is? I'm trying to bring from services, various approaches, then RESTful service. Now what do you mean by RESTful web APIs? Same thing. Web service API that adheres to REST architectural constraints. Just I told you. HTTP based RESTful APIs are defined with the aspects: base URI, or you can say URL, This will be the base URL. Say for example, http:// the trainer slash. If I say courses, if my type is get, it will get all the courses. This base URI will be same. Now I'll say /1, then it will get first course. My base URL will be same. I'll say /1, it is same. Instead of get, I'll just pass delete. So what it will do? It will not delete that record. So you'll understand that our base URI should be same. So anyway, once we implement, you'll understand all these things. An internet media type for the data. So it should also support data type. Normally it is JSON, the data that we pass and we get is JSON, but it can also support XML, images, etc. So we'll see all these things. Standard HTTP methods, I told you, get, put, post and delete. So all these things. Famous web APIs, Google Maps, Twitter, YouTube, Flickr, Facebook, Amazon, advertising, all these are famous web APIs. So you can use these web APIs. So .NET Framework has WPF, Windows Form, ASP.NET, but .NET Core has ASP.NET Core. But the .NET Core future versions, you will find all these things in .NET Core. So they are slowly winding up .NET Framework and they are completely moving towards .NET Core. You'll have .NET Core 3, then you'll not have .NET Core 4. Now from 5 onwards, there is no word core, .NET 5, that's it. It means core. No concept of frameworks. So slowly they are moving. And I told you there are 2 important points about .NET Core. What are those? Platform independent and open source. So these are the 2 plus points. So the complete source code is available on your GitHub. So a lot of differences, but these are the 2 major differences. Why are we choosing .NET Core? The first point is it is open source, it is free. The second point is platform independent. Now I can develop my .NET apps on Linux or on Mac operating system. Fine. And we have standard library. So you can create your DLL in .NET standard library and you can use the DLL in .NET Framework application and .NET Core applications. Normally if we create a library in .NET Core, I cannot use the DLL in .NET Framework applications. If I create a library in .NET Framework application, I cannot use it in .NET Core applications. So what Microsoft has done, they came up with new library, standard library. So this, if I create my DLL in .NET standard library, I can use the DLL in .NET Core applications, .NET Framework application, as well as web applications, Xamarin. Xamarin is, sorry, for mobile application. Xamarin is for mobile application. So I can use it anywhere. So one library to rule them all. ASP.NET Core. You can see this. .NET Core 2.2. Empty app, we'll move with empty app. So it has web API, APIs and web applications. And support for Angular, React, JS and all these things. So ASP.NET Core, we have seen all these things. Once I start my empty app, so everything we are going to see from an empty app. So it will be something like this. You have startup, you have programs. So this is the directory structure. Everything is from console app, your web API. So we'll configure all these things.